Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's session on writing the college essays with Rachel Williams, international representative from University of Kentucky. My name is Aleksandra Popovic, and I work as EducationUSA advisor in Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina. I welcome you all today, and I really hope you will use this opportunity to learn from Rachel about writing college essays, and that you will ask questions ask her or ask me or whatever. You also have my email address, you have my Viber phone number. If you need anything, just let me know. And Rachel, thank you for doing this today.
Sure. Thank you all for having me. I'm really excited to be here and very excited to be able to talk to you about this topic, which I know is something that a lot of international students aren't familiar with. And so we can really just talk about how to get started. So as Aleksandra said, I'm with the University of Kentucky, and I am part of their international center. So any college or university that you're applying to in the United States is going to have something that they might not call it an international center, but it will be the equivalent. And we really have two sides. So on the one side, we have people like me. So my job is really communicating with prospective students. Normally, I'd be traveling a lot to come and talk to you about University of Kentucky and what different majors and academic possibilities that we offer. And then once you come to and help you through the application process. And then once you got to campus, our international center also has our international student support services. So we also have a team here to help all of our students get acclimated, and any questions or problems that you might have, we are here to help with that too once you're on campus. At any point, if you have any questions, it'll be easiest for me not to stop for questions, but to type your questions in the chat box, and I'll do all of the questions and answers right at the end. So if you think of a question, you don't have to hesitate and wait, just go ahead and write it in the chat box, but I probably won't look at all of those until we're pretty near the end. But definitely, any kind of question that you have, even if it's more general than just the college essay, please let me know. So just a little bit of an outline for what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about why the personal statement is important, what type of statements you might be asked to write, some general considerations which to think about, and kind of what to do and what not to do. And we'll look at some sample topics and some frequently asked questions. And then I'll open it up to you for questions. So why is the essay important? And that's a common question from international students who might not have the equivalent in their home country. So the standard answer is really, it helps the admissions committee see you beyond the numbers. So what do I mean by the numbers? The numbers are the main numbers that admissions are looking at. They're looking at your GPA, your SAT or ACT score, if you had to submit it for that university, and your scores on the English placement exam, like the TOEFL or IELTS or Duolingo. So at first, to the admissions committee, you are a set of numbers. You are your GPA, your scores from this, your scores from that. The essay helps them get beyond the numbers, meaning we want them to see you as a person, as an individual. If they're evaluating you for admissions to their university, they don't want to evaluate just a set of numbers. They kind of want to get to know you. And this is an opportunity for you. This is an opportunity for you to show who you are beyond your GPA, beyond your SAT score. This can be particularly important if you feel that your GPA or your SAT scores are a little bit low, on the low end for the school that you're applying to. So you should take this as your shot to say, okay, maybe my GPA is not as high as some other applicants, but I'm going to show you who I am. The essay can also answer the question, what do you have to offer to our community? Meaning our college community, our campus. Why do we want you in particular to join us at the University of Kentucky or whatever college or university you are looking at? How are you going to be part of this community? The college essay is also a demonstration of your skills. So again, when you're just a set of numbers, they don't know if you're a good writer or a good communicator beyond what your grades can tell them. So this is a chance for you to demonstrate what you can do, how skilled you are at writing and communicating your thoughts. This can be especially important for non-native English speakers because it really can demonstrate your mastery of English. Obviously, you are probably going to be taking either the TOEFL or the IELTS or the Duolingo exam. So that's one way that you're demonstrating your proficiency. But you also want to demonstrate your mastery of English in a way that shows I'm going to be successful in your university when I come and when I'm writing papers, I'm doing my coursework. So the college essay is important on a number of different levels. It really is something that's going to make you become an individual beyond just a collection of GPA, SAT, English speaking scores. So, in terms, so if everyone could just remember to mute yourselves, that would be great. So there are two main categories of personal statement that you would be asked to write. One is more general and one is more specific. So the general would basically be you have freedom to write whatever you want within reason. So this is a very general statement. Or you could have to respond to a specific question. And they might give you a choice of answer one of these three prompts in your personal statement. And both of these have their advantages and their drawbacks. So a general, the real advantage of the general, where you have the freedom to write what you want, is that it's open and you can really concentrate on what you think is best. But that can also be a little bit difficult. It's easy to get overwhelmed and just think of, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to write. What do they want to hear? And what do they want to know from me? The responding to a specific question, I think, can be easier for that reason, because you then have some idea of what they're looking for. So those are the two main categories, and we are going to look at some specific writing prompts a little bit later as some examples taken from the University of Kentucky's application as well as the Common App. So there are some general considerations to think about, whichever kind of question that you are answering, whatever the subject of your essay is. Make sure you understand and answer the question or writing prompt. So make sure that you are doing what they are asking you to do, basically, right? Make sure that you really understand the topic that they are asking you to write about. You don't want to end up writing on a topic that really is not what they were looking for, because this would kind of be an indication of, okay, well, this student might have written an interesting essay, but it wasn't what we asked for. And then we're a little bit concerned that they don't know how to really follow directions and follow through when they're given specific instructions. So make sure that you do read the writing prompt or question carefully, and that you fulfill what it's asking you to do. You want to tell a story. So by tell a story, I mean that in the more general sense, in that you want to be able to draw people's interest. You don't want your essay to just be a collection of facts. You want it to have a narrative, a beginning, a middle, and an end. Because again, remember, a lot of the college essay is trying to show make the college admissions committee interested in you as a person. You want to be specific. So you don't want to be too general. Remember, this is a chance to talk about yourself, so you can talk in specifics about yourself. I think that one of the things to remember is that think of the college admissions officer. Think of how many students apply to the university. How many essays are they reading in the period of even just 1 month? It is a lot. You want to be able to hold their interest. An important part of holding their interest would be to concentrate on your opening. You want to draw them in right from the beginning. So I would say if there is one part of your essay that you want to really pay specific attention to, it is your introduction, your opening paragraph. You want it to be interesting. You want it to make them read more, because that's where you're really going to draw them in. So I think that that's something really important to consider. Think about how many essays these admissions officers are reading, and how are you going to make them more interested in yours than in anyone else's. Tell what you know, meaning don't try to be an expert in something you are not an expert in. Don't try to go in with a preconceived notions of, well, this is what admissions officers want to hear, so I have to do this specifically, even if it's something I know nothing about. Really think about, what am I an expert in my own life, right? You don't want to try to stretch yourself to a place where they're reading your essay and it becomes obvious, well, this person doesn't really know what they're talking about, or this is a situation that doesn't seem real. And then perhaps one of the most important pieces of advice as well is don't do the bare minimum. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that most essays are going to give you a word count. They'll say write between 300 and 700 words. That's just an example. Don't write only 300 words. Don't try to think, oh, okay, I just have to get this done as quick as possible and as short as possible, and that's it. It's obvious if you're doing the bare minimum. People can tell, oh, this is a really short essay. They basically hit 300 words and then just stopped. So really think about what you want to communicate, rather than just, okay, I'm going to write as little as possible and whew, then I'm done. So those are the general things that you should really think about as you're beginning to think about writing your essay. What to avoid. So this is especially important if you have a general essay prompt, meaning if you are writing an essay where they're giving you a lot of freedom to choose. So here are some things that you should not choose or you should not do. Controversial topics. I mean, anything that's too controversial in terms of like a lot of political issues. Now, that's not to say if you're a political activist and that's important to you and that's something you have a lot of accomplishments in, certainly write about that. But don't write, say, an essay trying to convince someone to agree with your political point of view. You don't want to alienate the admissions committee by inadvertently offending them. That is something to keep in mind. These are people who are reading this, and you don't want them to think, well, okay, this isn't someone who's interested in hearing other points of views. They're just trying to write about what they think. Okay, so don't try to write about anything too controversial. Also, the other thing to think about is don't write about what you think other people are writing about. And I think that's something that a lot of you do. You think, well, my friend wrote about this, or my other friend said that this is always a good topic to write about. There are a lot of pitfalls in doing that. First of all, it might not be something that you personally have a lot to say about. That means it won't be a strong essay. And second of all, if you choose a topic only because you think, oh, this is a popular topic that I know people write about, they are going to be comparing your essay more directly. It's going to be hard to stand out. If 500 students submit an essay on the same topic, you're not going to stand out very much. Obviously, if they ask you to write about a certain topic, then you're simply writing about that topic. But if it's a general essay prompt where they're basically telling you write about what you want, don't try to pick something just because you think, well, other people are doing this, so this must be good. I think it makes it harder for you to stand out. Don't simply list your accomplishments. On any college application, there is going to be a section for you to list your extracurricular activities, any honors or awards, like if you received an academic honor, if you've been in any kind of competition and you've won anything, if you do, volunteer work in your community and you've received a notice of commendation from that. There's room for all of this to be listed within your application. So you do not want your personal statement, your essay, to simply become another way to list your accomplishments. That does not mean you can't talk about them, because obviously if you've won an award or some kind of competition, this is something that's important to you and you've worked hard about, but you want to avoid the listing. So for example, let's say that you are in some kind of competitive math or science club at your school and your team got second place at a competition. Now, in your essay, you don't want to simply list, here's what we accomplished, here's what we won, but you could talk about how maybe being on this team taught you the importance of teamwork, or maybe how it taught you how much you love a certain subject, right? You can take a specific notable accomplishment and make it a story around it to demonstrate your hard work, your commitment, your interests, but you want to avoid simply listing. Last year we won this. The year before we placed third in 2 competitions. That's not compelling reading. So take your accomplishments and think, well, what is the story around this? What does this demonstrate about me more than simply the list of what I did or what I won? The other thing you want to avoid is, of course, repetition. You want to make this interesting for people to read, right? So don't try to, read over your work, and don't repeat the same ideas over and over again. So before you begin to write still, there are some questions. And again, this really depends on if you ever have an open topic where you can write about, a very broad range of things, or this might not be as important if you have a closed topic. But here are some things to really consider that will help you avoid listing or repeating. What is special or unique about you and your life story? Right. These are the things, as I said, you want to go beyond the numbers. You want to show them, well, I'm more than just the collection of numbers that make up my GPA and my SATs and my TOEFL. So thinking about what is special or unique about you and your life. What details about your life might help admissions better understand you? What sets you apart from other applicants? What do you think makes you different and unique? What are your college or career goals? That's always something to consider, especially if you have an interesting story about how you became interested in studying psychology or architecture or mechanical engineering. And what are the most compelling reasons you can give for admissions to be interested in you? You are selling yourself to a certain extent. So you want to think about, well, what can I say that is going to make them think, yes, I want this person to come to our university. I think that they would be a great fit here. So here are some sample topics. So these topics are taken from a variety of sources. And so, as I said, some of these are very general topics and some of them are very specific. So the first topic and the instructions, and this is something that I took directly from our application for the University of Kentucky. So please write an essay of 250 to 650 words on the topic. Notice the large range you have in how much you have to write. As I said, don't do the bare minimum. Don't simply write until you hit 250 and think, okay, now I've just got to find a way to end it, and then boom, I'm done. Really think about, what do I have to say? And where's a natural point to end this? So don't just do the bare minimum. On the other hand, you don't want to go over 650. You want to respect that limit. So most essays will give you some kind of specific instructions on length. Even if they do not, let's say they don't give you any instructions on length, that they're trusting you to use your judgment on how long your essay should be. I would say, as a general rule of thumb, don't write less than 500 words and don't write over 1,000 words. Make sure you read the directions very carefully. And that's really important for the length requirements. Make sure that you are really thinking, okay, am I fulfilling the basic requirements of this? So I would say most essays will give you, here's the minimum words you have to write, here's the maximum. I would say if it does not, think of 500 to 1,000. That's a kind of a safe area. So most essays will give you some kind of guidance in how long. And so this first question, this is the question that we ask if you use the University of Kentucky application. Think of a time when you were dealing with a challenge, personal or academic or work-related. How did you handle that? Did you seek support? And if so, who did you seek support from? So this is one of the more specific questions. This is one of the more specific writing prompts. But at the same time, it leaves you a lot of leeway to really think about, okay, how do I want to take this writing prompt and apply it to something that is going to reveal who I am? It leaves you a lot of room to choose a variety of topics. I think it's always good if you can relate it to your academics, because this is something that is going to really reveal who you are as a student. And don't be afraid of choosing a real problem. Let's say that your problem was biology class was really, really hard for you, that you just had such a struggle understanding the material. But you got tutoring from your teacher, you started a study group with other students from your class, you sought the support and you were able to support each other and study together and really succeed. I mean, that's a great topic because it shows they're not going to judge you for having struggled in a certain subject in school. What they are going to be looking at is, well, how did you overcome this? You overcame this by seeking out people to support you and solving your problem and succeeding. So that is if you apply to University of Kentucky on the University of Kentucky application. The Common application, so you can also apply to University of Kentucky through the Common app. And the Common app has a choice of writing prompts, which is really great because you can choose one that you have something to say about. It usually has a choice of like 5 to 8 or 9 prompts that you can choose from. And these next ones, these are just examples of writing prompts from the Common application. I didn't put all of them on there, but there is a wide variety. And the variety lets you really choose, do you want to talk about yourself as a person? Do you want to relate this to your academic life? But you don't have to relate this to your academic life. So here are a couple of choices from the Common app. So some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. So this is kind of a great prompt. This is, I think, a really interesting one because it lets you apply it to many different ways to really share what makes you unique. Another one, describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging that it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? So again, you'll see even though these are both like specific, they are also general enough that they are leaving you room to really structure this essay in a way that will be meaningful to you. Most essay prompts are going to be like this. They're not going to be too specific. Now, the last one I think can be kind of a trap for students. So this is the last essay prompt that you will see on the Common application. Share an essay on any topic of your choice. It can be one you've already written, one that responds to a different prompt, or one of your own design. This is on the Common application. This is the most popular choice. When students choose, this is the choice that students choose this one more than any others. I think that this is it seems easier than it is. So on the plus sides, why should you or should you not choose this choice? You look at it and you think, oh great, I have essays I've written for my classes in high school or for maybe a scholarship application or a different application. I can just take that essay, plug it in here, and boom, I'm done. No extra work. And that's where you really have to think carefully because yes, that can be great. And maybe you do have a perfect essay that says a lot about you as a person and as a student and talks about your strengths. If you do have that, that is awesome. It means you don't have to write another essay, but you really want to evaluate that essay carefully. You want to think, okay, be honest with yourself. Are you choosing to submit this essay because it's appropriate? or because it's easy and you're applying to so many schools and you've got so much work and you have your normal schoolwork on top of that, right? That's the consideration that you should really make. That's why I say this can be deceptively easy. It can be a trap if you submit an essay that, well, this reads just like an essay that somebody wrote for an assignment in English class, and it's not really telling us who they are as a person. So that is something to consider. When you get a very general prompt like that, that says it's okay to share something that you've already written, make sure it's appropriate. Make extra sure. Have other people read it and have them evaluate whether it's appropriate too. Don't just think, oh great, this is gonna save me so much time, I'm so excited. Really think about, is this the best decision? Some frequently asked questions. So these are questions that students tend to ask a lot about the essay process. So first question, are spelling and grammar important? Yes, that is the short answer, yes. I could stop there and just say yes. It is important, definitely, to read over your essay for spelling and grammar mistakes, especially if you're a non-native speaker. Now, that being said, when you are an international student, when you are an international applicant, the people who are reading your essay and looking at your application in general are 99% of the time are international admissions officers, meaning that they are admissions officers who deal only with international applications. That means they are very familiar with the fact that you are not a native English speaker. So they are not going to be evaluating your spelling and grammar in the same way that if you grew up in the United States and went to high school here and were a native speaker, right? They are aware that you are an international student. So you might have struggles in English that a domestic applicant, an American applicant would not have. They are aware of that. But at the same time, you want to give the impression that you put a lot of care and a lot of time into this and really go over it for mistakes as much as possible. Who reads the essays? So as I just said, your essays are read by admissions officers. So these are people who, this is their job, this is what we do, and specifically international admissions officers. So international admissions officers are the ones who are reading your applications. And as I said, they are aware that your application will look a little different because you're not a native speaker. They're aware that, you know, American high schools and international high schools can be very different. So they're used to evaluating different, not just your essay, but in terms of your GPA and the kind of classes that you've taken. These are all issues that they're used to. Another question that I kind of addressed already, isn't it best to use an already written essay as that will be easiest? And as I said, not necessarily. If you have an already written essay, definitely be very careful in evaluating, does this answer the question? If it's a specific question, does this fulfill the writing prompt? Does this tell the admissions committee the things that I want them to know about me? Okay, so it's not always best to use an already written essay, but it certainly can be, but that's something that you really need to evaluate. The last and most important question, can I ask anyone for help? A resounding yes. You don't want to send in an essay where you're the only one who has read it. You want to see who will read it, who will help you. Do you have a teacher who will help you? What about your guidance counselor in high school? What about your EducationUSA counselor? What about your one friend whose English is really, really good? What about your parents? You want people's opinion. You want to hear what they think. Now, no one is going to rewrite it for you, especially your teacher or your guidance counselor or your EduSA counselor. You also have to be aware, especially if you're asking a teacher or guidance counselor or EduSA counselor, you have to be aware of how many students they see and how many requests they might be getting for someone to read over an essay. So you have to really think ahead. If you want people to read your essay and give you their feedback, think ahead. Don't come to your high school guidance counselor or your EducationUSA counselor and say, well, this application is due tomorrow. Will you read my essay for me? Probably they'll want to. Of course they want to. They want to help you. But will they be able to, just in terms of having the time? That's a little bit more up in the air. So make sure that you give yourself the time in the process to get feedback, that you give people notice. Especially when it comes to anyone at your high school or Education USA, you want to, touch base with them well in advance and say, well, if I wanted you to read over my personal statement for me, how much time would you need? You also don't want to expect that they will rewrite it for you. I've been in a position before where, not at this job, but at previous jobs, where I've been asked to, evaluate college materials or write recommendation letters, anything like that. And I always tell the students very clearly, this is how much time in advance you will need to ask me if you want this. And I also tell them, I'm not going to rewrite this for you. I will give you two, constructive criticism. I can list a couple of things. Well, here are the strong points, and here are some questions I have or things you might want to change. So don't go in to ask questions or get feedback with the expectation that anyone will rewrite your essay for you. Yes, everyone wants to help. We're excited to help you with the next stage of your life and to fulfill your dream of going to college in the US, but we're not going to do the work for you. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind the time factor, and then also what kind of feedback you might get. But ask for help, absolutely. Even if it's unofficial, even if it's just, ask your mom to read your essay. And if she says, well, I just was confused about what you were saying here because it wasn't clear. That's great advice. That lets you know that your intention was not as clear as it might have been. So it is always a good thing to ask for help from a variety of sources. So those are really the basics as I see them. And I would love to take questions now. If you have any questions, you can certainly share them in the chat. So somebody asked, let's see, what if we're trying to combine two essay prompts because it seems more natural and more ourselves? Which option do we mark on the Common App? Should it be the last one, which says an essay of your own design? Yes. Well, that's a good question. Like if there are two prompts that you think, especially on the Common App, and you think you have a lot of things to say about two of them, but you want to kind of put them together, I would say definitely mark the essay of your own design, because you wouldn't want to give the impression that you were not answering the question. So that is good. So yes, I would say if you want to like take a prompt that's there and change it a little bit or combine the two, as you said, definitely mark essay of your own design, because you don't want to give the impression at all that you misunderstood the prompt or anything like that. Any other questions? Yeah, if you have long-term goals, absolutely. You can also ask me questions about things other than the essay. If you have other questions about the admissions process, or about, some of you might have questions about the situation in the United States and universities right now with the coronavirus. Really anything that you want to ask about admissions or about the application process. You mentioned your long-term goals in your essay. That depends on the prompt. Like sometimes if you're answering a prompt that's asking you about your academics, you can absolutely mention your long-term goals. If you have a clear plan, sure, why not? If you know right now, well, I'm interested in chemical engineering, and then after my undergraduate degree, my dream is to do pharmaceutical research to find a cure for cancer. Yes, that's great. You can talk, what I would say is you want to just not recite the facts, but you want to talk about that in a narrative. You want to say, well, I'm inspired to study chemical engineering because of these reasons, right? Like creating a story of why you're interested in this long-term goal or how you came to have this plan. That is certainly something that you can mention. So one question, how much importance does the essay have in the complete application? This is very dependent on the university. So some universities have what they call holistic application. So a holistic application means that they're not really concentrating on your GPA, SAT scores as much as they're looking at the all-around picture of everything. Any school that evaluates holistically is going to be upfront about that. In a holistic application, the essay is really important. In many universities, they're going to really be looking at your GPA and your SAT score first thing. And then they'll come to the essay. So it really is dependent on how each individual university evaluates. The other thing to think about too is that when you're applying to the university, you usually also have the chance to apply for scholarships. And so sometimes you just have to click a box. Do you want to be considered for scholarships? And if you click yes, then all of your application materials are also being looked at by the scholarship committee. Then your essay becomes more important. So it really is dependent on the university. I would say one thing to look for is if the university does holistic admissions, then the essay is going to be very, very important. It's always important. Your essay is going to be read. It is a part of the application. Someone will read it, unless you don't meet other basic admissions criteria. If you're ruled out because your GPA is very, very low, or your SAT scores, or for a basic reason, but if you, first of all, meet the requirements for admission, then they move and look at your essay. Your essay will always be read. It will always be looked at. Excuse me. In your opinion, what is the most important part of our applications? Again, that really depends on the school. As I said, schools with holistic applications are looking at everything. I think that first, before anyone reads your essay, they are going to be looking at your GPA, normally the SAT. That's changed right now with the situation due to coronavirus, because there's the understanding that students have not been able to take the SAT, so a lot of schools are waiving the requirements. Or they are, or like University of Kentucky, we don't require the SAT. We require the SAT only if you want to apply for scholarships. So I would say the first criteria that schools are going to look at is your GPA and what kind of classes you've taken. Meaning, and this really does depend on the system of the school you're in. Are you in a system where you've been able to take honors classes, or internet, or IB, or O levels? And that really depends. And they evaluate that as well. But that's the first thing. That's like meeting that basic hurdle. And they're definitely going to look at that. An additional information essay. So this can mean a lot of things depending on where it's asked for in the application. But basically, an additional information essay is, are there things that you think are important that you didn't get a chance to tell us because there was no place in the essay to put them? Are there any achievements or additional information that you think are going to make a difference in your application? Basically, what information do you want to give us that you could not already give us? Another question, what position do universities have about SAT scores under the novel coronavirus circumstance? So that's a really good question. So as I just said, we understand at universities that for international students, even more than students here in the US, that there are a lot of unique challenges right now, especially with standardized testing, with the SATs in the first place, and then also with the TOEFL or IELTS. So some universities do not require SAT scores for admission. So like I said, University of Kentucky, we don't require the SAT score for admission. We are still at the moment requiring SAT scores for scholarship consideration, but our scholarship deadline is not until December 1st. So if we're still in a position in several months where it's impossible to schedule SATs, that's a decision that we would revise as well. A lot of universities that normally do require the SAT have waived that requirement, saying right now for the next 2 years, it is no longer required. Make sure every individual university, that is pretty common. And I would say most of the universities that I've really heard have a position on that. That's what they're doing. Even if they normally require an SAT, they're waiving it right now and saying it's not necessary. 100%, this is something to verify with each university that you are interested in applying in. And even if you can't find an official statement of their new position on SATs, email someone and ask, because this is a question every university has thought of and they're not going to just leave you hanging. But I would say University of California, the whole system, for example, has just said as of, this coming year, they're no longer requiring the SATs for at least the next 2 years. Now, University of Kentucky, the only program that we have that requires an SAT usually is to apply to the College of Engineering. And what they're looking at, of course, is your math score in the SATs. They have a math placement exam that you can take online. So we have found a way to work around that at the university for programs for people that need that. The other standardized test to be aware of in terms of scheduling is your English proficiency exams. This is not something that universities will waive because they're made possible online. I would really urge you to see if the universities that you're interested in accept Duolingo scores. We do now. You can schedule these on time at your own time. And so taking an English proficiency exam is very easy to do online. So is it better to focus on about a major subject if I'm interested in many subjects and you haven't decided what major to choose? No, you don't have to focus on a major subject. You could even make the subject of your essay here, that you are undecided with your major because you have so many interests. You do not have to have a specific interest or a major in mind. At University of Kentucky, you can start as an undeclared major, which gives you time to really think about where you want to go with your degree. You do not have, that's why I think that there are so many writing prompts that universities usually give you and the Common App gives you. They don't want you to be forced to talk about what your major is going to be and why, if that's not something you've decided yet. What is the difference between early action and early decision? This is mostly a terminology difference that different universities and colleges use the different terms. A question about the letter of recommendation, since that's an important part of the application. So what is a general custom for a specific college for contacting people that agree to be our contact? So normally what everyone does now is you will have whoever you asked to write your letter of recommendation, there is an online system that they will load your letter of recommendation onto. So it does not have to be done manually. They don't have to hand you a letter for you to send in or email it to someone. But for you, in terms of you contacting people that you want to be your recommender, it depends on your relationship with them. Most people, when you're getting a letter of recommendation, we would recommend you get it from a college or high school counselor, such as an EducationUSA counselor or your high school guidance counselor or a high school teacher, someone that knows you well. And I think it's best to ask in person. I also realize that this is not always possible. So I would say an email is usually fine, especially right now. Which topics are most used? And that's a good question. So as I said on the Common App, their most answered prompt is the general one. So that's really hard to say, well, what do people mostly write about? But I would say that most people do touch on some form of academics. You want to let them know who you are as a student outside of your GPA. So this could be, how you've succeeded or where your academic interests lie, or it could be about extracurriculars and success you've had on any kind of, academic club or team. So somebody else wrote about, my boyfriend and I applied at the same graduate schools and we also have the same bachelor degree. In your opinion, would it be useful or harmful to mention in the essay something that we are a team? I think that that is not something that you would mention in the essay. I think that, and then for graduate school, it's very different. It's not going to hurt you to mention it, but it's not going to help you either. Normally for grad schools, there's an interview process that you'll go through as well. And that would be the time where you would really let the interviewers know, well, I'm only coming here if my boyfriend is also accepted, if that is the case. And if they want you badly enough, they will take that into consideration for the both of you. I don't think it's going to either help or harm in the essay, but what you want to make sure you don't work it in if it's not natural in terms of the essay prompt they give you for graduate school. Now, and you say you have similar interests and ambitions for professional life, if you do research together or anything like that, you can certainly mention it, but I don't think it's going to have much of an impact on you in the personal statement. So if you could tell us what you look for in students. So that is an excellent question. So what do we look for in students at University of Kentucky? You know, we are a large public research institution. We are a school that has over 200 different majors and a lot of different colleges. So we have students in things from, and range from engineering to healthcare professions, the liberal arts, social sciences. You can major in pretty much everything at University of Kentucky. What we look for really does depend on the specific programs you're applying to in some cases. So for example, if you're interested in our College of Engineering, there are certain admissions requirements that are specific to the College of Engineering. But really in our students in general, what we're looking for, we're certainly looking at your GPA. As I said, for international students, we are SAT optional, so we're not necessarily looking at SAT scores, and that makes your essay more important. So in terms of the requirements for the application GPA, we want to look at what classes you've taken. It's always good if you've taken and done well in advanced classes like honors or IB or O-levels, depending on what your school offers. And we certainly do put importance on your essay in the application, especially because we're not looking at your SAT scores necessarily. It's a question about basketball. So it's, you know, the University of Kentucky has the most players in the NBA. Are there special schedules for athletes, or do they manage to harmonize studying with sports? I would say both. So the University of Kentucky basketball team, if you're a basketball fan, we are the most successful NCAA Division I program. We have more players in the NBA, as you know already, than any other university. And so for our competitive athletic teams like basketball, American football, and football, soccer, there are considerations made to help them with their travel schedule and their classes. So there are special considerations in the sense that there's this, for any kind of university event that you're traveling for, you can get official excuses. So there's the expectation that you can make up work at a later date, and that there will be accommodations made. The other thing, so I'm going to you definitely still ask some questions if you have them. I'm just going to put this screen up here because this has all of our contact information. If you want to scan the QR code or copy those down, it has my contact information. Email me at all with any questions you have about University of Kentucky specifically, or about essays or anything to do with the application process. Check out our website if you're interested, and our Facebook page. We have a lot of opportunities for international students. We have a lot of scholarship opportunities for international students as well. So that's definitely something to be aware of. One last word about the essay. I've really been talking about the personal essay in your college applications, but in scholarship applications, and this is something that I should have made more prominent perhaps, I just thought of it, but scholarship applications, scholarships that you apply to, will also require essays, and some of them are more specific, but they will give specific prompts. So somebody asked a question about scholarships. How much do scholarships cover? Just studying in the college, or do they also provide with place to live or tickets to get to the college? No scholarship really from any university is going to provide you with like transportation costs to get to university, but we do have scholarships that cover quite a bit of tuition. We have 3 different university-wide scholarship programs for international students. In addition to those programs, different majors also have scholarships available. So for example, if you're applying to the College of Engineering, there's scholarships available in the College of Engineering. If you're applying to the College of Business, there are scholarships available in the College of Business. It is possible to get multiple scholarships. Stacking scholarships, meaning you can get up to full tuition. So none of the scholarships by themselves are full tuition, but it is certainly possible to get up to full tuition by getting more than one scholarship. So do you see the COVID-19 budget cuts and novel practice of test waiver in the USA reflect on the amount of scholarships, especially for international students? That's a great question. I do not, for now, see it reflecting on any way on scholarships, international or domestic students. Because we are, and I can speak mostly from the perspective of University of Kentucky, but I know that this is something that many schools are thinking about as well. We know that universities in our budget cuts, we're not the only ones with financial pressures because of the situation with COVID-19. We know that many of our students and their families are facing financial pressures. So we have really made a commitment that scholarship money is not something that is going to be cut from our budget. We realize that in many ways it's more important than ever. So I think most universities, this is our way of thinking. This is a really good question. What's a balance between a very formal essay and more open one with more emotions put in? Because at the end, we're talking about ourselves, and especially when it comes to arts, so like a master's degree in fine arts. I think this is a great question. I think that the essay is a place where you can be less formal. You have done now you don't want to, use language that's inappropriate or be too personal, revealing about yourself, but you've done the formal part already where you fill out all the information about your GPA and your grades and your scores. And again, as you say in your question, this is the time to talk about yourself and to let people get to know you. So I think that you certainly don't want to be too formal. If there's any kind of essay where you can be less formal, this is the kind. So I don't think you should be afraid of that at all. And I think, especially for like a fine arts master degree where, it's about your creativity and who you are as a person and as an artist, this is certainly something that they're going to be open to and they're going to be expecting from you. What would you say is the appropriate style to write in? Meaning, does it have to be too formal or can you be more unique, artistic? I think that the answer is to the second one. This is kind of very similar to the question I just answered, but yes, show off your uniqueness in your writing skill and be creative, absolutely. Again, as I said, remember how many essays that college admissions officers read. And if you write an essay that's unique, and this may be showing off artistic skills or your creativity, you're going to capture their attention and their imagination. You're going to be different. And you're also going to show them who you are. So I would say that is absolutely appropriate. So someone wrote, I was wondering if you can tell me more about full sports scholarships for women's soccer. So I can't talk about sports scholarships. So sports scholarships are administered by the separate sports teams. If you email me, I can tell you who to get in touch with, but I can talk a lot about our academic scholarships, our international student scholarships, but really just because of rules and regulations from the NCAA, the governing body of university sports, that sports scholarships are not something that I can deal with. If anyone has any more questions, don't hesitate. Thank you so much. It was so great to have so many wonderful questions and to have everyone so involved. I really appreciate your time, and everyone feel free to email me and get in contact. I'd love to hear from you.
Rachel, thank you so much. This was really, really fantastic presentations, and I see that a lot of people had great feedback, had a lot of questions. It was so useful. I'm very happy that you actually reached out to Education USA in Bosnia and Herzegovina, that we actually managed to get so many students from Georgia as well. Hi, Georgia.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you, Dali, for having your students come here today. Thank you. Thank you, Rachel, once again.
Thank you so much, everyone. And again, oops, I think I said that to everyone. I'll send out my email in the chat as well. Thank you, and don't hesitate to get in touch with me for any kind of questions at all.
And just to remind everybody that this session is recorded and it will be published on our YouTube, EducationUSA Bosnia and Herzegovina YouTube. In case you missed something or you want to share it with your friends so they can see what Rachel was talking about today, or whatever, find it there and use it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you and bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.